A corrupt anti-Trump judge insulted Karoline Leavitt in the middle of a packed courtroom. Judge Maxwell Carter, known for his harshness and disdain toward conservative figures, was ready to dismiss her presence and her testimony. He arrogantly mocked her, clearly underestimating the power of the truth she was about to present. Leavitt, however, was unshaken. She stood tall, holding a thick stack of documents, and responded with unwavering confidence. "Understood, sir. But the law isn't something you can twist." Her calm defiance in the face of his scorn was just the beginning. The moment she laid out the truth, the entire courtroom fell into a tense silence, setting the stage for a confrontation that would expose the corruption hiding in plain sight. Judge Carter, red-faced and furious, slammed his gavel down, demanding silence as he tried to assert control over the situation. He mocked Leavitt again, calling her a mere Trump mouthpiece with no place in his courtroom. But Leavitt was undeterred. She proceeded to present the evidence, knowing it would shake the very foundation of the case in front of them. When she mentioned the Faith and Family Foundation, an organization tied to the conservative cause that the judge had been all too eager to target, Carter's smirk faded. He interrupted her, dismissing the legitimacy of her documents, but she pressed on. Her voice was clear, cutting through the judge's objections. "I'm here to testify to the truth, something you seem unwilling to hear." As the tension escalated, Leavitt laid out independent audit records proving the charity's financial transparency. The crowd in the courtroom was on edge. Leavitt wasn't just pushing back. She was standing her ground against a powerful figure. Maxwell Carter, now visibly shaken, tried to maintain control, his voice trembling as he called Leavitt's claims nonsense. But Leavitt, without flinching, continued to present her evidence. She calmly asked, "Do you want to see them, or are you afraid the truth will embarrass you?" The entire courtroom fell into stunned silence as Carter, his hands gripping the gavel, found himself unable to respond. The anger in his eyes betrayed his unease. He barked at her, threatening to hold her in contempt, but Leavitt remained unshaken. With a defiant shrug, she replied, "If you want to jail me for telling the truth, go ahead. But I won't stay silent while you try to bury justice." Carter, now visibly unraveling, resorted to frantic outbursts. He attempted to discredit her further, but Leavitt's composure only intensified the discomfort in the room. She wasn't backing down, and the evidence was irrefutable. Carter's frustration reached its peak when Leavitt brought up the Liberty Fund, a name that sent a shockwave through the room. "Do you know the group that funneled money into your offshore account, coinciding with rulings against conservative defendants?" she asked, her voice cold but sharp. Carter froze, his face drained of color as his eyes darted around the room. Leavitt, with a piercing gaze, slowly repeated, "The Liberty Fund." The tension in the room was palpable. A murmur ran through the crowd as phones were raised to capture the unfolding drama. Carter's eyes flickered with panic, but he quickly tried to dismiss the accusation, slamming his gavel and shouting, "Enough!" But Leavitt wasn't finished. She held up a sheet of paper, proof of the bank transfer. "This is a bank statement with your signature, showing a $100,000 deposit into your Cayman account, one day after the Liberty Fund meeting. How do you explain that?" The courtroom went dead silent. Carter's face twisted in rage, but his earlier confidence had evaporated. He stammered, attempting to deny the evidence, but the cracks in his facade were too obvious. The game was up. Carter, now desperate, attempted to cover his tracks by denying everything. "That's fabricated," he shouted, but his voice cracked with fear. "You dare slander me? I'll make you pay for this." Leavitt's response was calm, almost chilling. "Do you dare deny it?" she asked, flipping to another page of the documents. "April 20th. Another $50,000 from the same source. Want me to keep going? The courtroom buzzed with disbelief. Carter's eyes darted around, his panic mounting. The evidence was undeniable, and Leavitt was relentless in exposing him. He sank into his chair, looking defeated, but not ready to admit defeat. Carter tried to regain some semblance of control, shouting, "You have no proof. This is a Trump circus." But Leavitt wasn't about to back down. She calmly responded, "This isn't just talk, Your Honor. This is evidence, bank statements, your signature, emails. I have it all." With each word, the walls closed in on Carter. He tried to escape the truth, but there was no way out. Leavitt, resolute, continued to hold up his own lies, piece by piece. As Carter's frantic denials grew more desperate, Leavitt's confidence only grew stronger. She flipped to another page of her stack of documents and calmly read aloud. June 12, 2024. An email from you to a Liberty Fund representative. Thanks for the timely support. Faith and family will be handled as planned. How do you explain that, Your Honor? The courtroom erupted in whispers. Phones were raised, capturing the moment as the evidence continued to pile up against the judge. Carter, now visibly trembling, slammed his gavel down one last time, but the sound was hollow. His authority had already been shattered. "It's forged," Carter screamed, but his words had lost their weight. Leavitt simply raised an eyebrow. "Forged?" she replied, her voice cutting through the tension. "Then why does this email come from your official address, Your Honor? And why does it match a $75,000 deposit to your Cayman account that same day?" The courtroom was in chaos now. Carter, defeated and cornered, had no more excuses. Leavitt's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the storm of panic unfolding in the room. The truth was out, and Carter's corruption was laid bare. Carter, his hands shaking with rage, lunged at Leavitt, his face contorted with a mix of fear and fury. "You have no right," he shouted, but the desperation in his voice betrayed his crumbling authority. "This is my courtroom. I won't let you turn it into a circus." Leavitt stood her ground, unflinching, and without missing a beat, she flipped another page. "If you don't want to hear about Faith and family, let's talk about the Thompson case from last month," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. "A small business owner lost everything because you refused to review his charity evidence. 2 days later, your account got an $80,000 boost from the Liberty Fund. Quite a coincidence, huh?" The courtroom erupted again, the energy shifting from disbelief to outrage. Carter, now visibly losing control, slammed his hands on the desk, his words coming out in a broken shout. "Enough. I'm a federal judge, not some crook you can slander." But Leavitt didn't back down. "You're not a judge anymore, Your Honor," she said coldly. "You're a criminal, and you're about to be exposed." The sound of her words reverberated in the room. The truth had become undeniable, and even Carter couldn't escape the weight of the evidence anymore. In a final attempt to salvage whatever shred of dignity he had left, Carter bolted for the back door, as if trying to flee from the consequences that were quickly closing in on him. "I can't take this anymore," he screamed, his voice breaking with panic. But the courtroom officers were quick to react, blocking his path and preventing his escape. "You're not going anywhere," one of them said firmly, stopping him in his tracks. Carter, his face now pale and drenched in sweat, turned around to face the courtroom, his voice shaking. "You're betraying me, all of you." His words were those of a man completely broken, realizing that his time of power had come to an end. The audience erupted in chaos. Some stood in applause, while others shouted at him, their phones raised to capture his fall from grace. One man in the back shouted, "Serves him right," as the courtroom buzzed with excitement. With nowhere left to run, Carter slumped back into his chair, still trembling, his wild eyes now fixed on Leavitt. She stood there, unwavering, as if to show him that no matter how much he tried to deny it, his corruption was now fully exposed. Carter, completely desperate, pounded the desk with both hands, his voice cracking as he shouted, "You've got nothing. I'm the law here. I'll have you thrown out of this courtroom." But Leavitt remained unshaken, her gaze locked on him with cold resolve. She raised her hand and held up a small device. "I don't need to shout, Your Honor. I have something far more powerful than your threats," she said, her voice calm but piercing. Without waiting for a response, she pressed play, and Carter's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Wipe all the Faith and Family files. I don't want them in the trial. If anyone asks, say they're lost." The room went silent as everyone processed what they had just heard. A murmur of disbelief spread through the crowd. Carter's face drained of color, and his eyes widened in horror. The clerk, who had been trembling at the desk, burst into tears. "He made me do it," she sobbed, her voice barely audible. "He said he'd ruin my career if I didn't." The crowd erupted again, this time with anger and outrage. Someone shouted, "Blatant corruption," as phones flashed relentlessly, capturing every moment. Carter, in his panic, lunged across the desk, trying to grab the device from Leavitt's hand. But she stepped back, keeping it out of reach as he crashed to the floor, knocking over papers and scattering them everywhere. His disheveled appearance, once that of an untouchable federal judge, now painted a picture of a man in complete chaos. Carter scrambled to his feet, his robes now soaked, his hair a mess, looking nothing like the powerful judge he once was. "It's fake," he screamed, pointing a trembling finger at Leavitt. "You and Trump set this up. This is all a conspiracy." Leavitt, cold and unyielding, simply raised an eyebrow. "Fake?" she asked, her voice cutting through the tension. "Then why are you panicking like this? Just calmly prove it." He had no answer. His eyes darted desperately, searching for an escape, but there was nowhere left to run. Leavitt, with deliberate calm, flipped another page in her stack of documents. "This is security footage from your office, Your Honor. July 10th, 11 o'clock p.m. You were ordering evidence destroyed. Want to hear more?" Carter stood frozen, his mind reeling, unable to come up with a response. His panic deepened as he realized the walls were closing in. Leavitt's voice was a relentless force, and with each new piece of evidence she presented, the weight of his guilt grew heavier. At this point, even Carter's bluster couldn't mask his terror. The courtroom was now filled with a mix of stunned silence and the sound of phones capturing the unfolding downfall of a man who once believed he was untouchable. In a final desperate attempt to avoid facing the truth, Carter bolted for the back door, his face pale and his breath coming in ragged gasps. "I can't take this anymore," he yelled, his voice cracking with panic. But before he could make it, 2 court officers swiftly blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere," one of them said firmly, grabbing his arm. Carter turned, eyes wide with fear, and screamed, "You're betraying me. All of you." He flailed his arms in frantic desperation, like a man cornered and realizing he had nowhere left to hide. The courtroom, once silent, erupted into chaos. Some spectators stood and clapped, others jeered at him, while the flashes of phones continued to light up the room. A man from the back row shouted, "It's about time," and a few others cheered, capturing the moment of Carter's fall from power. The judge, shaking uncontrollably, slumped back into his chair. He was now a broken man, no longer the powerful figure he once was. His eyes were wild, but there was no escape. Leavitt, standing tall and calm, had stripped away his authority in front of everyone. Her unshakable resolve and the overwhelming evidence had done what seemed impossible, brought down a once untouchable figure. Carter, defeated and desperate, slammed both hands onto the desk one last time. His voice cracked as he shouted, "You've got nothing. I'm the law here. I'm the one in charge." But Leavitt didn't flinch. She raised the recorder once more, her finger hovering over the play button. "Want me to play another clip, Your Honor?" she asked, her voice cold as ice. "Or should I let the FBI handle it?" The courtroom went dead silent. Carter's chest heaved as he struggled to keep his composure. He tried to assert his power once more, but there was no denying what was about to happen. Leavitt pressed play, and once again, Carter's voice filled the room. "Thanks, Liberty Fund. The money's in. Faith and family won't be an issue." The audience exploded. A woman in the back shouted, "Unbelievable!" as phones recorded the incriminating evidence. Carter's face twisted in horror as he realized just how exposed he was. The clerk, still visibly shaking, stood up, her voice barely a whisper as she pointed at Carter. "He made that call right in front of me," she cried. "I had to do what he said, or he would have ruined my career." The crowd was in uproar, shouting for justice. Carter, now completely unhinged, lunged at Leavitt, trying to grab the recorder from her, but he tripped over a chair, crashing to the ground as papers scattered around him. His desperate actions only made him look more pathetic. Leavitt didn't budge. She stepped back, watching him struggle as he tried to regain his balance, his robes soaked and his once pristine appearance shattered. Carter, disoriented and covered in sweat, scrambled to his feet. His robes were a mess, and his hair was plastered to his forehead. His face was a mask of panic as he weakly pointed at Leavitt, his voice trembling. "This is all a lie. You set me up. You and Trump, you're framing me." Leavitt stood still, her gaze unwavering. "Lies?" she asked, her voice dripping with cold confidence. "Then why are you so terrified, Your Honor? If this were all false, you'd just calmly prove it." Carter had no response. His breathing was ragged, and his eyes darted around the room in search of a way out. But there was no escape now. Leavitt was holding all the cards. She flipped another page in her documents, reading aloud. "August 5th, 2024. An email from you to the Liberty Fund. The next case will need more support. Make sure the money's on time." The courtroom gasped. Phones flashed as everyone recorded the final nail in Carter's coffin. Carter, his face drained of color, couldn't deny the evidence anymore. He trembled, his fingers clutching the desk for support, but he remained silent. Then, with a last-ditch effort to hold on to his dignity, he ripped the documents from Leavitt's hands and tore them apart in front of the entire courtroom, scattering the pieces across the floor. "You've got nothing," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "No one will believe you." Leavitt simply stepped back, a small, confident smile playing on her lips. "You just dug your own grave deeper, Your Honor," she said, her tone icy. "I have copies, and so does the FBI." Carter froze, the realization dawning on him that his efforts were futile. He had nowhere to turn. His attempts to destroy the evidence only made it clearer to everyone that he had something to hide. Carter, realizing the gravity of his situation, stood motionless, staring at the shredded documents scattered around him. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he tried to regain his composure, but his voice wavered. "You can't do this. I'm a federal judge. I have power. You won't get away with this." But Leavitt remained calm, her expression unwavering. She raised her phone and spoke directly to him. "No, Your Honor. You won't get away with this. You ruined your own career when you chose to sell out justice." The tension in the room reached its peak. Carter's body was tense, and he took a shaky step back, But there was no more room to retreat. The weight of his actions had caught up to him, and it was too late to deny it. Suddenly, the door to the courtroom swung open, and a team of FBI agents entered, led by a tall agent with a badge that gleamed under the courtroom lights. "Judge Maxwell Carter," the agent called, his voice firm and booming. "We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of corruption, abuse of power, and destruction of evidence." The courtroom erupted in applause. Spectators jumped to their feet, cheering and clapping, while others shouted, "Justice!" Phones flashed, capturing the moment as Carter's world crumbled around him. Carter, in a final act of defiance, screamed, "You can't do this! I have immunity! I have connections!" But his words were drowned out as the lead agent stepped forward, gripping Carter's arm tightly. "We know exactly who you are, Your Honor," the agent said, his voice low. "And we know what you did with the Liberty Fund and the Faith and Family Foundation. It ends today." The cold sound of handcuffs snapping shut echoed through the courtroom as Carter was led away, his shoulders slumped, his power and reputation destroyed. The audience watched in stunned silence as he was escorted out, the weight of justice finally catching up with him. As the FBI agents escorted Carter out of the courtroom, the sound of his handcuffs clinking echoed, marking the end of his reign. The courtroom erupted in cheers, with people standing and applauding, while some shouted, "Justice prevailed!" Cameras flashed non-stop, capturing the historic moment. Leavitt stood at the center of the room, her arms crossed, her eyes unwavering, as she watched the corrupt judge, once untouchable, being led away. She had exposed the truth, and the system had finally taken its course. But for her, this victory wasn't just about Carter. It was about something much larger. The clerk, still shaken, turned to the lead FBI agent, her voice trembling as she confessed. "He forced me to destroy evidence. He threatened me. For months." The agent nodded, offering reassurance. "You did the right thing by speaking up. We'll protect you." Leavitt, having fulfilled her role in bringing Carter to justice, approached the agent and handed over the final pieces of evidence. "Here's everything. Bank statements, emails, videos. I trust you'll take it from here," she said, her voice steady. The agent took the documents with a nod of approval. "Thank you, Miss Leavitt. You've done more than we could have hoped." As the FBI team began searching Carter's desk for further evidence, Leavitt turned to the defense attorney, who had been by her side throughout this journey. The young woman, her voice full of emotion, spoke softly. "You saved the Faith and Family Foundation, and not just them. You made history today." Leavitt nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "No," she replied. "We just restored justice. This is a win for everyone." The FBI agents discovered a hidden stash of documents, evidence of a larger corruption network involving 7 other judges. The lead agent looked at Leavitt and said, "You were right. This is bigger than we thought." Leavitt's eyes lit up with determination. "If there are more out there, I'll help you find them." Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, microphones raised, and cameras flashing as Leavitt walked past. A reporter shouted, "Miss Leavitt, what can you say about Carter's arrest?" Leavitt stopped and faced the camera, her voice strong and clear. "Today we proved that no one is above the law, not even a judge. Corruption will be exposed, and justice will prevail." Her words sparked a wave of support on social media, with hashtags like Justice for All and #Leavitt for Justice trending across platforms. People from all walks of life rallied behind her, celebrating her victory as a symbol of truth and integrity in a fractured system. Back home, Leavitt embraced her husband and their young son. As she kissed her child's forehead, she whispered, Mommy did the right thing for this country today. Her husband, proud of her unyielding spirit, nodded. I saw the news. You made me so proud, my Gen Z girl. Leavitt smiled, but her resolve remained firm. It's not over. Carter is just one piece. There are more out there, and I won't stop until they all pay for what they've done. Leavitt then opened her phone to an outpouring of support, with thousands of messages and likes flooding her feed. She typed a quick update. Today was step 1. Thank you all for the support. We won't stop until justice is fully restored. As the #LeavittForJustice hashtag spread like wildfire, the fight for truth was just beginning. Leavitt knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but her victory against Carter was a clear message. The corrupt would be held accountable, no matter their power. And for Karoline Leavitt, justice wasn't just a cause, it was a promise.